All right, 6:30, I'll call the meeting to order. Welcome, everybody, to Weathersfield Select Board meeting. March 21st, 2022. Paul, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Comments from the board, town manager and citizens not on the topic, not on the agenda. Topics not on the agenda. The board. Paul?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure everybody's thinking it, but I just wanted to thank the highway crew guys. They have honestly been out a lot, and as everybody knows, mud season's a lot more this year than it seems to have been in a long time. So I think Ray said something about almost like 20-something loads on Sunday on the roads and stuff, so anyways, I just wanted to thank everyone for that.
Wendy? Yeah, Paul, I was gonna say that's fine. You know, I called to get rock for my driveway today and can't get it for a couple days because St. Pierre is totally focused on all the towns and we were the first one on the list. So, you know, the guys are busy, they're out there, they're doing the best they can. Brandon, I think you said you wanted to give a little update. I don't see Ray here.
Yeah, Ray's not here. Right now, I shot him a text, and he will be here via Zoom for the Lottery Lane update. They've been working very long hours. Mr. Stapleton and I drove the roads for about 2 hours. He showed me all of the high priority roads. There's some roads that are just that were not passable today, and they had to focus on those particular roads first. And then from there, he created a prioritization plan. And they're doing the best that they can. I think they're doing a really good job. I think the town's in really good hands. Actually, Ray is here.
Hi, Ray.
If you want Dave's chair, he's not coming, right?
Yeah, why don't you take a seat right here?
Just right there.
Put the guy on the spot.
We were just talking about it.
We were just thanking the highway crew and talking about all the work you guys are doing out there. Brandon was kind of giving an update.
So basically what I was just saying, Ray, is that we drove the roads today. You told me about the high priority roads. You've developed the plan. Can you tell us a little bit about the roads that you've dealt with today and the roads that you'll deal with for the rest of the week?
Well, it will change depending on the weather, but the plan is, today we came in early. We started at 6, it wasn't really early, sorry. And the roads were a little bit frozen up, so we were able to get further out onto the road without destroying the road to get to the mud hole. So we did Wellwood Orchards, I'm sorry, Sunday. Baltimore Road, Little Scuttany Road, Plains Road, Perkins Hill, Graveland Road, Golden Ridge, Victory Drive. I think I'm forgetting one. Anyway, that's what we did today. Graveland Road. And then tomorrow our plan is, and again, this is tentative depending on the weather, but if it does freeze up again, we're going to be able to get all the way out 3 miles out onto Skyline without destroying the road with loaded trucks and take care of the Skyline and Upper Bowen intersections. Those are pretty bad. And several places on Skyline. It's not whole lengths of road, it's like roadblocks. One place on, maybe 2 truck lengths long, but it's bad in those spots. The biggest reason is it hasn't froze since a week ago Wednesday, and without it freezing at night, it really just draws the frost out all at once. So instead of, usually it spreads around town, so you have this area, and then it moves to this area, and then it moves to that area, and it just all went at once. And there's still a lot to come, but right now, today, I actually felt like we were getting a leg up on it. We're down 2 guys, so we have, I'm pretty much assessing as we go because it changes so rapidly, and then we get a gentleman in the grader and 3 guys in the 10-wheelers. Just Osmos Pit opened up today, which saved us from having to drive further to get stone. We used all our stone to get over 20 loads stockpiled at the highway garage. We used that on Sunday. We didn't go out on Saturday because of the rain. It would just destroy the roads. I appreciate everybody's patience. We have been trying for the last 2 years to post roads. We say road closed to local traffic only. We're trying to save those roads for the residents, for the fire departments, for the ambulances. So if you see those signs, if you don't live there, try not to drive there. I know it's in everybody's head that it's shorter to go this way. This time of year, it is not shorter to go that way. It's not saving you any time, and you're actually ruining the road for the people that live there. That's, in a nutshell, that's what we're doing. I got to play it out through Wednesday, and then I just keep on assessing the roads as they thaw and how they're thawing. And
Before you got here, I told Brandon, I called St. Pierre to see if I could get some stone for my driveway today, because it's a quarter of a mile of dirt, mud, and no, I couldn't get it because they're busy with all the towns.
correct.
They just won't do it.
I have had St. Pierre on Friday and today. Friday and today, directly to our shop and stockpiling, trying to get
I saw
12 to 15 loads of 1.5 inch. It's a ledge material, it has some gravel in it, so it works good on 6-inch slimy mud. And then you have the holes that have no bottom, that's where you put the heavy stone.
I stopped over about 2 o'clock today. I wanted to touch base with you, see where you were at, and just, see if you needed anything we could do. And there's nobody there. Doors are locked because we're down 2 guys. They're out working. They're not in the highway garage. They're out on the roads working.
And I really want to do a shout out to the fire department today. They helped me cut off a tree on Reservoir Road. I didn't want to stop the guys from hauling, so I asked if they could help, and they helped me cut the tree up. And then when they were done with the loader, they brought the loader out and pushed the trees out of the road. And we had another one that could go down on Skylines. We took care of that one as well. Not the fire department, but
Great job, Ray. Keep it up.
Thank you.
I appreciate
my crew
it
was awesome.
very much.
And I can't thank her enough.
And probably neither can we, but we'll try, right? Brandon, anything else from you?
That's it. I can cover everything under my town manager report.
Okay. Comments from citizens, not on, topics not on the agenda? Yes, sir.
Possibly, I sent an email to
Your name first?
Renee Bergeron.
Okay.
I sent an email to M. Todd, asking if I could have a few minutes at the next select board meeting. Never heard back from.
Well, that would be me, and I didn't get it.
You didn't get
I
it.
did not get it.
Well, that if I could have a minute.
Well, this is comments from citizens, so yes.
All right.
You can.
I'm Renee Bergeron. I live up on Golden Ridge Road, Golden Ridge Farm up there. Got the blueberries and Christmas trees. And shout out to Ray and the road crew. You guys always do a great job. Anytime you need anything from me, let me know. But you guys do a great job, and thank you very much. To all of you, I did 4 years on the budget committee and 4 years on the planning commission. So thank you to all of you for giving up your time to do this. And since I know how valuable it is, I'm going to move right to the topic. Internet access. I'm wondering, we keep hearing about the state and the federal government's got money for internet, and we have terrible internet, at least in my part of Weathersfield. I understand other parts of good internet. And I'm wondering if the town of Weathersfield is doing anything to try to get some of that money as much as they can to try to do something with internet access in the town of Weathersfield, because it certainly affects property values. And you probably all heard stories in the last couple of years of people that couldn't sell their home because they didn't have internet access, and other people that thought they had it and had to get an office someplace. So it's going to become an increasingly important, factor in the property values of people in Weathersfield. Better property values, better taxes, better road service, better money for those guys and roads. So, are you doing anything, or if you want to get back to me with an email or another time, I don't want to take up your time, but I'm just concerned about that and wondering what might be going on.
Okay, well, technically, that kind of touches on the topic that's on the agenda, because the ARPA funds are on the agenda for an update. At least they were. Where are they?
I can briefly answer his question, Mike, because internet isn't specifically on the agenda.
Oh, no, it's under the town manager's update, the ARPA funds. And I think in my conversation with the town manager, when he gets to his town manager's report, he's gonna cover the process that he has established to move through the ARPA funds. Him and I are starting Wednesday, taking a tour of buildings in town to assess all of those. It starts Wednesday, and then it's next Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday that we
Yeah.
see the rest of them. So he's got a schedule for that, and he's created a bullet point of five steps for discussion for this board to move through. And internet access it's part of the conversation we're having. We have 4 providers in Weathersfield. And I don't want to get too much into that conversation right at this moment. I'll let Brandon cover it when he gets to his town manager's report on what what we're proposing, but there's not much of a discussion for tonight on the ARPA funds. But that's an ongoing agenda item that we're working on because we have limited time to make decisions on spending this money. The last payment comes in September or October?
September.
Okay, so we already have half of the money, and the other half comes then.
Okay.
Which is about $800,000. But I will say this, the goal is to find and spend the money in a way that best serves the town as a whole.
Absolutely.
And that's what this board will be charged with.
Great, as long as I know, you're looking at it.
It's on the radar.
And like I said, you didn't get your email, and I know there are other vendors that, I know some parts of Weathersfield have great service because they have access to others, but particularly where we are, we've got, it's Fairpoint, and now it's Consolidated Communication. There's only one, there is no other option.
Mhm.
And it's just extremely poor, so. Thank you for looking into it and keeping up on it, and maybe you could just drop me an email sometime, let me know what's happening, or if there's anything I can do to help, if you need me to survey, certain roads or things like that.
I would say watch the town website. We'll keep things updated there as far as what we're doing with the ARPA funds and the progress that we're making and the discussions.
I just want to make one statement.
Go ahead.
So the state has funding that they're using to fund broadband and building out broadband. So the Vermont Community Broadband Board is actually the board that these companies apply to receive that funding. And TDS has talked about building out their entire footprint in town with fiber. And in addition to that, we have those 4 providers. We reached out to Comcast. I didn't really get any real answer from Comcast. I talked to them, but so there's plans in place, and they are moving forward with that, but that's separate from us. So that's actually like the state level stuff. They're working with the state to build out broadband to the last mile. But TDS is talking about building out their entire footprint, not just to the last mile. But no provider has reached out to us for financial assistance at this point.
All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Rain.
Thank you.
Okay, any other citizens, comments, topics not on the agenda? Okay, hearing none. Review previous minutes from a meeting, 3/7/22. Do I hear a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second it.
Kelly? She got it in first. Okay, motion to review the minutes, 3/7/22. Do I hear any changes, any discussion about the minutes? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Minutes are approved. The next item on the agenda is the vote to award the small business grants. I am a small business owner and I applied for this grant, so I have to turn the board over to somebody else, and I'm going to leave the room during this discussion. I feel that's appropriate. The vice chair is not here. The clerk has requested somebody else do the job, and Paul has volunteered to chair for us for a moment while I step out of the room through this issue.
All right, so as Mike said, we're on number 5, which is a vote to award small business grants. And in the packet, we've got some information, the board does at least, on the small businesses that have applied. There was 6 that applied, and it looks like 4 of them were approved by a small board that was put together. So I'll just read this basically here, the beginning of Brandon's town manager's report here. The Weathersfield Select Board developed a second round of small business grants to assist businesses in Weathersfield that have been impacted by COVID-19 pandemic. Grant applications were due by March 17th, 2022 at 1 p.m. And then a grant review committee made up of the treasurer, the town clerk, and the town manager held a meeting at 1 p.m. to review the grant applications, and then submitted what they have here for us. Is there anything else you'd like to say on?
So the committee was made up of the treasurer, the town clerk, and I, and we basically looked at the grant eligibility, the grant priorities, and the submission requirements. We did disqualify 2 because they didn't meet, or they didn't meet the submission requirements. So you're required to do 3 things there, and not all 3 of those items were done, so those 2 were disqualified. We've recommended 4 for funding because they met the eligibility, the priorities, and the submission requirements.
Just a quick question on that. The 2 that did not meet, were you able to reach out to them and communicate that to them, or are we not, that's not what we're doing?
Well, no, according to, when there's any deadline for any application.
Okay, that's it, yeah.
If you don't submit all of the requirements at that time, then, your application is denied.
Absolutely. Nope, there were certain guidelines and they were clear and
Yeah.
stuff. So, all right, so I guess what we're at is a point where you guys have approved these 4, and so it's up to the board now to vote on the 4 of them? Is that correct?
Yes.
Do you feel that we should do each one individually, or can we do the 4 together, or?
I think it's a good opportunity for people in town to know
Each one?
each of the businesses in town that are operating, because, all
Right.
4 of these businesses do a good job for the town.
Sure, absolutely. So what I'll do is we'll just start with the first one. The first one's a Scuttany Mountain Horse Farm. This business provides agricultural practices with primary business focus on therapeutic horsemanship lessons, day camp, retreats, clinics. They assist people 8 years and up. Special challenges such as ADHD, PTSD, and addictions. This business also provides safe and fun recreation. Funds will be used for working capital and employee support. And this is a $2,000 award. So I guess I'll look for a nomination or a motion to accept the Scuttany Mountain Horse Farm.
So moved.
All right, I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
All right. All those in favor of approving the $2,000 grant to Scuttany Mountain Horse Farm, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, the next is Violet Sewing Service, is that right? You said?
Violetta's Sewing Service.
Violetta's Sewing Service. Provides alteration services for hospitals, nursing homes, weddings, and other general alterations. Funds will be used for working capital and employee support. Do I hear a motion to accept? Oh, okay, Kelly,
I will second that.
second it. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next is Hawk Mountain Motorsport. It's a motorcycles service, a repair business, and for motorcycles only. Funds will be used to cover missing and anticipated payments to allow continued operation. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Kelly?
I'll second.
You have a second? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Mountainside Graphics Screen Printing and Embroidery. They're printing and embroidery, providing screen printing and embroidery apparel to local recreation departments, sports leagues, schools, contractors, and anyone who needs something special for an event. Funds will be used for working capital. Do I hear a motion for that one?
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor of on-site graphic screen printing and embroidery signify by saying aye.
Aye.
So, on that, we've got all four passed, all four are there. So I want to thank everyone for their participation, and, glad we were able to help some. We'll get Mike back in, and we can move to the next agenda item. Any other discussion you have on any of this?
Just congratulations to the 4 businesses that applied, and I hope they can use the funds to continue operating in town. And we certainly do appreciate them.
Yes, we appreciate all businesses.
Correct.
New and upcoming ones too, for that matter. That's what makes the town. All right, I'll pass the meeting back over to Mike.
Thank you, Paul.
You're welcome, thank you.
Town manager update.
So I just have a couple of brief things. The town garage solar site is moving forward. Site grading was completed and perimeter access was completed on March 11th. Trenching is in progress and should be done on March 18th. Post installs began on March 14th. Drilling will be required and scheduled to start on March 23rd. GMP was on site on 3/16, and pole sites were determined. Frames and panel installs to begin on April 1st. Any comments or concerns with the town garage solar site? Yeah.
Just quickly, I was curious, I haven't looked completely at the webpage. Is there anything on the town webpage just highlighting any pictures or anything on that?
There is not. We posted something on Facebook last
Okay.
week.
Okay. The only reason I asked, I did see some things on Facebook where some people were wondering what was going on there, and they didn't seem to know.
Yep.
I'm not sure if, just, we have the news section, I think, on the town webpage and stuff, so I didn't know if there was a section for event or what's going on or something, so.
It is a good.
Or Nancy.
Yeah, it is a good.
Nancy does some stuff. I'm not sure if she is willing to, talk about that in one of our articles or anything.
We'll get a news article up this week with some pictures.
Yeah, I think that would be great for the residents just to see now that there's actually good progress going on.
Yep. Anybody else? All right, ARPA update. Per the request of the select board, we will be conducting full-scale building assessments. These will be done at Martin Memorial Hall, Weathersfield Proctor Library, the Ascutney Fire Station, the West Weathersfield Fire Station, the transfer station, the 1879 schoolhouse, and the highway garage. We've hired the assistance of a contractor to complete these walkthroughs with us and assist us in developing the reports, the cost estimates, and the prioritization plan. So the team that'll be going through each buildings will be me, Mike, Olivia, each department head, depending on what building we're at. And we're gonna go through it with a fine-tooth comb and determine if there's anything that we need to fix or anything that we can use ARPA funds to improve. Anybody have any questions on that? All right, Martin Memorial Hall update. So the project is pretty much complete down here. The Martin Memorial Hall Board of Trustees held a meeting on March 15th to review the project and additional recommendations. So if you look behind us at the cupboards, they're all stained the same color. So we're looking to paint the actual cupboards a different color or stain them the same color as the doors. So it's not just one big blob of the same color. So we're going to be moving forward with that. We also reviewed VOSHA requirements for wiring. So there's some wires that are a trip hazard right there, and another wire over there. So we're looking at creative ways to address those issues, either with a new board table with wheels that we can easily wheel behind the curtain when we rent the room, or putting them in some kind of casing like you see up there that we did on the ceiling. So we're in the process of addressing that. The church will begin renting the hall on Sundays, starting on the first Sunday in April. So that's really good news. They said that they only need this half of the room, so we don't actually have to break down the tables. We're going to move them slightly over to the left a little bit, and then they can use this area over here. They have between 8 and 10 people. In addition to that, we revised the rental agreement, and that's included as attachment 8 to my report. And we do have the hall rented on the last Saturday of this month and again in June. So people are starting to rent it again. And we're hoping the Bone Builders class will come back to the hall on Monday and Wednesdays, starting on the 28th. So again, they use this section over here. And I believe I never seen it since I got here, because as soon as I got here, COVID happened. But I guess that was a popular class. Any questions on any of that? All right.
Well, one point that was in there that you had discussed with me was the amount of time it takes to set all of this up. So I just want people to kind of get it, wrap their head around that a little bit. You said it takes about 2 hours.
Yep.
To set this room up, if it has to be broken down. So just food for thought moving forward with that discussion about possibly getting a different set of tables or whatever. The idea is to reduce that time. That's a lot of time to spend running wires and cables and stuff.
It is. I estimate $40,000 over 5 years.
In time spent setting this up, tearing it down, moving it around.
Yep. I do.
Okay.
The Ascutney Volunteer Fire Association Fire Truck RFP. So we did get together and we developed an RFP based on the specs that were approved by the select board earlier this year. And that RFP was advertised on March 9th at 10 a.m. The RFP was also advertised on the Vermont Bid website, Valley News, Weathersfield website, and VLCT Classifieds. The final date for RFP submission is April 8th at 11 a.m. So if there's anybody out there that builds fire trucks, please feel free to submit a proposal. The public bid opening will be at 12 p.m. on April 8th. The review period between April 8th and April 20th, and then we'll have recommendations to the board on the 21st. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Brandon.
Yep.
Any questions for the town manager? Next on the agenda is the financial management questionnaire. I believe this is Steve Heyer.
Yep, and I'm happy, if you're willing, I'm happy to switch places with the audit presentation. Our auditor has a distance to drive. If she can get out a little earlier, that might be helpful.
I had asked the town manager about this myself. So I'll let him answer that question.
I mean, I think it can go in the current order.
So you're up.
All right. So the Vermont State Auditor of Accounts designed a questionnaire a number of years ago that town and school treasurers are supposed to annually share with their school boards and select boards. And the concept is a good one. The concept is that there's a bunch of questions about internal controls, and it creates an opportunity for there to be a discussion with select boards and school boards about what the internal controls are. And so basically, you don't want the same person to do the entire gamut of your accounting transactions. You don't want the same person to receive money, create deposits, bring the money to the bank, write checks, balance the bank account. You want to divide those things up, because if anything, what we're about financially as a municipality is stewardship of resources. So we want to make sure that we protect the public's money. And so it's good for the public, and it protects the people who work for us as well if we divide things up. So people can't be in a situation where they're accused of doing something that shouldn't be done. or don't have the opportunity or the incentive to maybe think about doing something because the duties are split up. So this questionnaire that I think was in your packet addresses some of those internal controls. So I think it's a good idea. I do not like the way some of these questions are phrased, and I do not like the fact that sometimes yes is the best answer and sometimes no is the best answer. So and some of these questions are, does the town do this? And some of these questions are, do you do this? Do they mean me as the treasurer, or do they mean you as the town? Because I may not do it myself, since I only work 10 hours a week, but somebody else in the town is doing it. So I have but they didn't ask me for input before they developed this. So this is what it is. I've answered yes and no to the best of my ability, a couple of don't knows, and the by whom column is also kind of weird. I used that when it made sense to say by whom it was performed, and I also used it as sort of a general comments area when I thought there might be particular comments. And if you want to, we can go question by question. If you want to just ask questions, I'm happy to just respond to those questions. I'm not sure what the preference is here.
Anybody have any questions regarding the?
I have just a quick question. I've been through the list a couple of times over the last few years, but each time come up with a few things. Is there any benefits to having some of these things, yes or no's, different? In other words, obviously I know, do we loan money to people or something? That's probably not a good one to do, but the one here, like that you said you don't know, is have the select board members attended financial training. Is that help in anything by us having that, or just ourselves? In other words, is this form just to say, yeah, you checked off some boxes, or do we get more brownie points, or I don't know how to.
No, this doesn't go anywhere. There are no, as far as I know, there are no questionnaire police that determine whether or not we go through this. It gets signed and it gets filed away.
It's more for us to kind of like, oh, I hadn't thought of that. Do we do that? Is that good? Is it not? That kind of thing.
So we don't submit a report or a copy to the state or anything. It's yeah. Is it beneficial for all select board members to have some financial training? Sure. Some of you come with that. Some of you might want to have it, and I think the League of Cities and Towns and others provide that sort of training. So that was one of the I don't know questions, along with whether each town official has copies of all policies and procedures. I'm not sure everybody needs to have a copy of everything, but I also don't know whether you all do or not. I did see Brandon putting together a big policy manual.
Yeah, the select board members all got that the last time, so that might be a.
But you're not the only town official.
No, right, absolutely. So.
And I don't know if the people on the
planning or
zoning or 1879 schoolhouse building necessarily need all that, but I answer the questions that are here.
Have the select board members attended financial trainings? Mr. Fuller and I have both attended VLCT trainings. It was a while ago. It would have been 2012, I think, that we did that. So it was a while ago. So we probably ought to go to another one. Any other questions for Mr. Heyer?
You know, there are a couple of things here that are different from last year. We are behind in bank reconciliations for our main operating account. We went through essentially the majority of last fiscal year without an accountant, so we fell behind in a number of different things. One was reconciling the main operating account, which we're catching up with, but we are not current. So that's an issue that we're working on. And the other issue was in terms of, let's see it on, never see what you want on the list when you want to see it. Am I aware of, has there ever been a theft or unauthorized use of town funds or equipment? Well, we have a long history as a town, and suspect that somewhere from the date we were founded till today, somebody probably did something bad, but I can't speak to any of those issues. But there was an issue this year with the cash drawer where there was a certain amount of money that went missing. So that the answer changed from a no to a yes. I think those were the major items that changed from last year to this year.
So I will say that the case is still open with the missing money. And I did notify the board when that occurred.
So are you saying the 2 items on here that aren't up to date will be up to date eventually?
Well, the plan is, yes, to bring
Okay.
our operating account reconciliations up to date and make sure they're done every month.
Okay,
But that was the job of our previous finance
Yeah.
director, and nobody was here for almost 12 months who could do that. Didn't do
Okay, anything else, Steve?
that. No, that's, except that you need to sign a copy of this.
Okay. And you have that with you now, or?
Yeah. Great, thank you.
You're welcome, thank you. Any other questions for Steve? Next is the audit presentation.
Excuse me. Hi, everyone. My name is Brittany Gilman, and I was the lead auditor this year for the town of Weathersfield. I'm from RHR Smith, and we are new to you this year, or you're new to us, I guess, whichever way you want to look at it. So I just wanted to take a minute or two to tell you a little bit about who we are. So we're a Maine-based auditing firm. We audit in Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Massachusetts, but primarily Maine and Vermont. I'm Vermont-based, so we have auditors that live all over. I live in the Rutland area. All we do is essentially municipalities, so we do governments, nonprofits, school districts. We do probably 85% of the school districts in Vermont, and we have a number of clients in this area, Ludlow, Mount Holly, Putney, Bells Falls, Rockingham, so we kind of are familiar with the area. And I actually grew up in Ludlow till I was 10, and I have super fond memories of the Village Snack Bar, which I called the Big Rock when I was a kid, and I drove by and it's not so big, the Rock, that's when I was a kid. And also the Swap Shop.
Yes.
I went to the Swap Shop quite a bit, and Wellwood Orchards every year still. So pretty familiar with the area and happy to be here. I'm gonna just kind of try to go over the high points tonight. This is a draft. That said, I don't expect fund balance to change for any of these accounts. There may be some supporting schedules that sort of we're looking at and trying to make sure that they match what you have, or we need to recategorize things, but we're not expecting substantive changes at this point. But you will see some areas that are highlighted because we're still working on them, or we needed some clarification. So that's all the highlights mean. It doesn't mean, red alert. It just means that we need to go back and look at it. And I know you're really disappointed to hear this, but I'm not going to read it word for word. But I'm happy to go back and talk about anything that we don't cover. So it looks like the first page, I'm going to look at your packet so that we're on the same page. So the first page in your packet starts on page 57. And that's just the draft acceptance letter, which again has not been signed yet because we're still working on sugaring out some final details. But that's what will be signed when you accept the final draft. The next couple of pages, 4 pages I guess, is called the SAS 114 letter. It stands for Statement of Auditing Standards. And this is pretty, I would say, formulaic language required by certain accounting pronouncements where we discuss any significant accounting policies, if there are any changes to accounting regulations. We would disclose here if there were difficulties encountered in performing the audit or if we had disagreements with management. Both of the answers to those things is no. So that's good. But if there were any, we reported here. And then the financial statements themselves actually start on page 62 of your packet. From here on out, I'm sorry, this may complicate things, but I'm going to refer to page numbers using the page number on the bottom of the report. So, for example, if you go to page 66 in your packet and scroll to the bottom of that, you'll see a page 1. So that's what I'm going to be referencing for page numbers, but I'll try to kind of give you time to get there. So pages 1 through 3 is called the Independent Auditor's Report, or the IAR. And in this report, we discuss management versus auditor responsibility. And we also give the most important thing, which is the opinion paragraph, which is on page 2. The opinion paragraph doesn't read in a very exciting way, but it's really important. It says that we believe the financial statements that we're talking about here to be fairly stated in all material respects. That is the absolute best opinion that you can get, although it doesn't sound super exciting when you look at it. Starting on page 4, it's actually pages 4 through 11, that's the management discussion and analysis. So this is a really good summary of the audit. If you don't read anything else, it's good to read this. Probably more useful in its final form. This is one of the places where we're still sugaring out some things because, as you can probably see, there's a lot of management input here. So, you know, I'm not going to go over the management discussion analysis because I am going to go through the whole audit report. But if you're ever thinking to yourself, you know, what did she say about this, or can I find this information? You might be able to find it in the MD&A, management discussion and analysis, more quickly than you would be able to in the full report. So the first sort of statement that I'm going to point you toward is called Statement C. It's the balance sheet of governmental funds, and that is on page 16. Yeah, 16. And your governmental funds are really what most of your funds are. So governmental funds focus on near-term assets and liabilities, so we're not presenting things like capital assets or long-term debt. It's really focused on things that are going to come to fruition within a year, usually. It is the order, sort of horizontally, is most liquid to least liquid, so most like cash to least like cash, right? So under assets, cash is at the top, and then it sort of goes down as to how easily something can be converted to cash. It's sort of like things that you expect to receive sooner rather than later. We also only list what we call here major funds. So major funds has to meet a certain criteria compared to your overall financial statements, and if it doesn't meet that criteria, it gets lumped into that second to last column called other governmental funds. But there are supporting schedules in the back that will help, that will break down sort of what's included in there. What most boards, and rightly so, and community members are really concerned with is fund balance. So that's sort of almost to the bottom of the page. There's different categories of fund balance. So your non-spendable fund balance are things like prepaid items or inventory. You cannot use that because it's already accounted for. Restricted fund balance is typically restricted by a grant or an external source like a statute sometimes. And then committed and assigned fund balance is typically by voters or the board, depending on the level of authority. So, for example, in this case, in the general fund, your committed funds are related to conservation, rabies control, aid to residents in need, and FY22 tax reduction. And then your assigned fund balance is your rainy day fund. And then your unassigned fund balance is almost $275,000, so $274,489. And that is exactly how it sounds. It's unassigned, it's available for future use or not, but it doesn't have any restrictions on it in that way. I did want to note, you can see there's a deficit fund balance in the grants fund. This is expected, and it's related to the interfund loan that was done between the highway fund and the grants fund. So as the loan is repaid, that fund balance will come back up. So that was expected, and it was presented a little bit differently in the audit last year. And we did a restatement because it was causing the highway fund to look like it had a negative fund balance, which obviously wasn't intended. Don't want to have that, and we had to have sort of a lot of conversations to figure out what the intent was. So there is a note, which I'll show you about the restatement and what that means.
What line is that, where?
So if you look kind of in the middle of the page under the grants fund, it's almost toward the bottom, and it's in parentheses. It says 148,867.
Yes.
So that is a deficit fund balance, which would be more concerning if you didn't know why or how it was going to be replenished. Since we do, it's just something to note. So.
Thank you.
We borrow from our reserve funds rather than borrow $190,000 from the bank. We borrowed from our reserve funds, and we're paying reserve funds interest.
Yep.
So we're benefiting from the interest.
Yeah, I remember having these conversations when I was budget committee years ago. Yep. Good.
So that's your balance sheet for governmental funds. We're going to skip a page and go to statement E. This is the same set of funds, so still governmental funds, but it's your revenue and expenditure, so it's an income statement. Might look similar to what you would see for a financial report without the budget. And if you go again, sort of down towards this, like the third line from the bottom, you can see the net change in fund balance. So you can see that your general fund balance decreased slightly, your highway fund balance decreased a fair bit, but your capital reserve fund went up. So you can kind of see the change there. And the way that fund balance goes up or down is if your revenues exceed your expenditures, your fund balance increases, and the reverse is true. So one thing that I find there's sometimes a confusion about is how that might relate to your budget. And the answer is that it's good to follow your budget. You should do that because it's your voter giving authority, but it doesn't necessarily relate because you can have many more expenditures than budgeted and make up for that in revenues in some way. Sometimes that happens, particularly if you get like a small grant and you lump it into your general fund, you get a $10,000 grant or something like that. You have more revenue but more expenditures. So I just like to point that out, that it's really about your revenues and expenditures and not so much on your budget. So we're going to skip another page. We're sort of going every other page now. The other statements, you're certainly welcome to look at, but I find that they're less meaningful for making financial decisions for a board. They're more like required statements for your audit. So page 20 is statement G. That's your statement of net position for proprietary funds. So net position is essentially fund balance. You have one proprietary fund. It's your solid waste fund. And a proprietary fund, in this case, it's an enterprise fund. It's business type. And so essentially the goal of a business type fund is to sustain itself. That doesn't always happen. In fact, that often doesn't happen, it seems, sort of across the board. But the goal is that it will take care of itself with revenue that it takes in. The difference one of the differences between a governmental fund and a proprietary fund is that proprietary funds also focus on long-term assets and liabilities. So we do present your capital assets and depreciation. And if you had, long-term debt, it would be presented here. And one of the challenges of proprietary funds is like depreciation expense. It can be hard to overcome that, especially in a relatively small proprietary fund, making sure that you're investing enough in capital assets every year to overcome the depreciation. In this case, you have most of your fund balance as restricted. So it's pretty common to see net investment in capital assets. In fact, your capital assets are almost fully depreciated, so that will be gone soon, depending on how much more you invest. But most of your net position is restricted, and it's restricted by essentially a reserve fund within the fund that was established by the voters to be used for capital expenditures at the town's former landfill and current solid waste management facility. So the thinking behind that is that releasing those funds really could be done by the voters. So it wouldn't be probably a decision that you could make in order to get a positive unrestricted fund balance. So because you have that restricted fund balance, it's leading to an unrestricted deficit fund balance. You know, I'll say I'm sure that that's not exciting to see, but it's also not altogether that uncommon, particularly for, you know, for a fund of this size. It doesn't take much to lead it in that direction. There's not a lot of wiggle room. There's not a lot of, you know, margin for error. And you can see on Statement H, which is the next page, that's page 21, that's the revenue and expenditures. So you can see that revenues have exceeded, expenditures have exceeded revenue, and it's likely been going in that direction for a number of years, which is leading to that deficit. Next are pages 23 and 24. So those are highlighted as Statement J and K. These are your private purpose trust funds. They're highlighted because we needed to make some updates. I would say they're not substantial updates, but these are your, well, it's Fund 39, if you're Steve and you know what that means, but it's like Campbell and Hicks and Torp, those private purpose trust funds.
Corporate trust funds.
Investment, yeah. I'm sorry, public trust funds, yes. And then the actual notes start on page 25. So it's actually the bulk of the financial statement is the notes. The schedules in the front are really the smaller part. What comes in the back is sort of the legalese, so to speak. So note 1 starts on page 25, and that's, I would say, sort of a summary of the other notes. We talk about any significant policies that you have, and there's a standard COVID note disclosure that we have to put in. We talk about the state of emergency and when that expired, and how that might affect things moving forward, which for the most part is we don't know. I'm not going to go over the next couple of notes. So the notes follow sort of the same hierarchy as the financial statements, so most liquid to least liquid. So there's a note about deposits and investments, and there's a note about interfund balances and about capital assets. One note that I do typically point out to boards, just because it's good information, is note 6, that's the debt note. And it starts on the bottom of page 42 and sort of goes through page 44. And I'm not pointing that out because I think there's anything particularly concerning, but it is a list of all the long-term debt that you have and the interest rates and the date that it matures. So I think it's just a nice thing to have it all in one place. And then on page 45, we have notes 9 through 14. So those notes talk about the various classes of fund balance and break it down a little bit more. So I'm talking about, you know, what's non-spendable, what's restricted, what's assigned, etc. And the restatement, well, you have to get through the pension note, which is note 16, which is excellent bedtime reading. And if you can get past that, you can get to note 20, which is the last note, I believe, and that's on page 55. So that talks about the restatement, if you wanted more information about that. So actually 2 restatements. One was related to the allowance for doubtful accounts, which was dissolved. And then the other significant one was related to the $190,000 interfund loan. And I'm getting to the end here, I promise. Thanks for hanging with me. Starting on page 69, we give you that breakdown that I talked about of the special revenue accounts. So there's a balance sheet and an income statement for each set of funds. So there's the, you know, those are things like the revolving loan fund, records, restoration, library reserve. They don't meet the criteria of being large enough to be presented by themselves, but we do break them out here. And then, you know, 72 to 73 is your capital, your non-major capital funds, which is, I think, just your ramp fund, your presence ramp fund. And then you have a couple of permanent funds, which we present on 75 and 76. So that's the cemetery fund and Proctor Library and Poison Creek. And then on page 80 and 81, this is is another independent auditor's report, and this is on internal control. So it's not a fraud audit. We don't go through every single transaction, but we do a set of tests on internal controls to determine both are you following best practice and also are you doing what you said you would do. So for example, if your procedure says that you require purchase orders, are you actually doing them? If it says that you have to have a second signer on your bank recs, is that actually happening? So we kind of go through and do those things. So if we had found something that we would consider a material weakness or a significant deficiency, that's the most severe, that means it's pervasive and it has really high probability of materially affecting the financial statements, we would put that here. So we say that we didn't find any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. There is another place called the management letter, which we're still working on and is in draft form, where we would identify things that we found that we believe are opportunities for improvement, but they don't rise to the level of a significant deficiency or a material weakness. So those would be things like not having your bank recs up to date. So that was a comment that we had, that bank reconciliations hadn't been performed timely. Same thing for general ledger reconciliations, so AR and AP accounts not being reconciled timely. And a couple other recommendations like that, or notes that we had like that. And in the management letter, there is an opportunity for management to respond. And if they choose to do so, then we will include that in the management letter itself, so that that response is also memorialized. I think that concludes my presentation, so I'm happy to answer questions.
Any questions? Anybody? Come on, there's only like 3 pages here.
It's all riveting stuff.
Yes.
Come on.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Barney.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think what you said all in all was that we passed the test.
You passed the test. It's materially, financially, it's materially correct. Yeah,
Good.
fairly stated.
Good.
And that's the bar.
Well, thank you, Brittany.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, if there are no questions, is the non-transport license. This is the West Weathersfield Fire Department presentation on a change that they'd like to make for their services. You start or they start?
I can kick it off and then I'll pass it on over to Josh and Josh.
You gentlemen good with that?
I'm not sure we have a lot to present. We did put together a business plan based on the questions from the previous meeting. And we wanted to come to essentially answer any other questions and look to see if we can move forward, and if not, what the next steps would be to do so.
Okay. I thank you for that plan too, by the way. I asked for that. Brandon?
Yeah, so on February 21st of this year, I submitted a report to the board regarding West Weathersfield Volunteer Fire Department's intent to apply for a non-transport license in an effort to improve services for Weathersfield residents. The following point summarized the February 21st report. And basically within this report, I stated that on December 7th of 2020, this was brought forward to the select board and we discussed this, and information was requested specifically pertaining to insurance. A meeting was held with our insurance company and we determined the additional cost will be $25 per member. So if there is 8 members, like we were saying in the last meeting, there would be an additional cost of $200 in total. If there's 10 members, it'll be $250. I do want to state that membership fluctuates over the year between both departments. So these numbers are constantly fluctuating anyways. So at the end of the year, that's when they determine what our cost will be. And it could be more or less than what we projected. It really just depends on what happens throughout the year. But generally, the total cost for a member is $150, or $175. If a member was also a member of this squad, their cost increase would be $25. And we take care of that at the end of the year.
I believe it's $275 and then $300, right?
Yeah, excuse me, 275, so $25 more would be 300. Thanks, Josh. The department has most of the equipment they need to carry out the duties of this license. We did meet at West Weathersfield Fire Department. Paul Tillman and I went over to that meeting, and then we immediately went over to the Ascutney Firehouse afterwards and had a discussion with them. I reached out to Dale Gerard at Golden Cross Ambulance, who confirmed that we're one of the only towns that don't have this, and also said that he was in support of this. This is not an ambulance service, so we're not buying ambulances and we're not going to be doing that type of thing. It just means that we're able to help people until Golden Cross Ambulance arrives and the patient is transferred into their care. This also means that we will now have insurance coverage. We'll be able to move forward with training and get those on the department fully trained to care for Weathersfield residents when they're in a state of emergency until Golden Cross can arrive. During the February 21st meeting, the board requested the following information. What is the scope of service? What is our liability insurance policy? What is the business plan? And how many people will be pursuing this license? Since this time, a business plan has been created and enclosed as Attachment A. Within that business plan, the scopes of service can be found as Attachment B, and the liability insurance policy has been obtained and included in Attachment C. Although we don't want to fully limit how many people will join, we're anticipating 8 to 10 people would be joining this branch of this department. So if you go to Attachment A, this is the non-transport license business plan. There's an executive summary, which basically states that the West Weathersfield Volunteer Fire Department is seeking to advance the care we provide to the citizens and visitors of Weathersfield on calls for service that we are currently responding to. So I think that's an important note there. Like, the department's already responding to these calls. What they're looking to do is just be able to have the training, have the licensure in place, have the insurance policy in place to provide better care for residents. Josh, do you want to go through these highlights and objectives, or you don't want me to keep going?
You can feel free to keep going if you'd like, or it doesn't matter to me, Brandon.
Why don't we switch off for a little bit? Why don't you go into the highlights and objectives, and maybe I can take it back, mission statement and organizational structure and so forth.
Oh, I'm not going to let you do our mission statement. Okay. So, again, we're not looking to buy an ambulance. There's no intention of buying an ambulance. I know that was a concern at one point before information was presented, as I'm sure it would be a concern to anyone else that is in town, because that's a large expense. So no intentions of increasing the fleet with any vehicles. We do want to provide faster response time with qualified folks before Golden Cross gets there. It is a timely response to the west side of town for Golden Cross. It's just simple logistics that it creates a challenge, and we are often there, 10 minutes ahead of time before Golden Cross. That does vary, but it allows us to start offering care to patients, which is also going to improve the quality of care. We're going to have appropriate licensing and insurance rather than having some members on Dale's insurance, other members untrained. Essentially, this will be there'll be protocols in place, and it will be much more organized. It's going to provide more opportunity for volunteers to specialize. So right now we don't really have, a medical side of the department. There has been some interest from members of the community. I would say in the last year to 18 months, 2 or 3 people have expressed interest in doing, medical type things, but not so much the fire response, which will allow us to actively recruit those individuals. And if we can also improve the recruitment by clarifying these roles and having some of the calls that people would care to do as far as medical stuff they can handle, allowing some of the folks that really care about the fire side to focus on that, and hopefully by spreading out that workload, we can reduce burnout as well. So The objective is to gain formal licensure with the state of Vermont as a non-transport rescue squad. After that's established, we're going to enroll interested individuals into formal training, and then we will also, at that time, once formal licensure has been granted, we will have to enter into an agreement with Dale, our Golden Cross ambulance. That is a requirement of the state. It is essentially, I did present it, and I believe Brad, I don't know if Brad included that in any packets, but essentially it says that if one of us gets called, the other gets called, so that we're not excluding anybody. And once the ambulance gets there, we're going to transfer care of that patient to the ambulance personnel. It's very simple, but it is a requirement of the state. I have spoken with Dale about that. He also expressed that we were going about this the right way as well, and that he was supportive of this time. And then the mission statement for the department, we did create a mission statement a couple of years ago to try to really focus members. I will read that. It is the mission of the West Weathersfield Volunteer Fire Department to preserve life and property and to promote public safety in an atmosphere that encourages compassionate professional service, innovation, and diversity. And I'll let Brandon take it back if you'd like to from there, unless there's any questions at this point.
So just a couple of things here. You know, the scope of service is enclosed. In addition, the insurance documents are enclosed. The startup expenses we talked about in great detail. And we're talking about around $750 in equipment and between $1,900 and $35 in training. So, you know, we're looking at a total startup cost of $4,500, of which, after reviewing the budget, we think that we can move things around in a way to not go over in expenditures this year. So I think that's important to note. So in other words, throughout the year, as you manage any budget, things change. And when things change, you have to adapt to those changes. And this happens throughout the year in every department. In this case, it's noticeable because it's right on paper, and we're talking about an increase in service to residents that has been requested for discussion at the table. So at the highway department, there's things that we just make decisions on throughout the year. Same with my budget, same with the transfer station. And you have to increase and decrease accounts in order to move throughout the year. Did I miss anything with that, Josh?
I just wanted to touch on a couple of things.
Okay.
It's really with the startup expenses. You know, we really tried to paint a really accurate picture with all of the costs. You know, we don't have exact numbers of who's going to want to take what trainings. So we did try to paint a high cost scenario. The other piece is the insurance change of the $25 per person. I don't believe it was in here, but we are already paying that, I believe, as a town on 7 people. So anyone who is licensed in EMS, regardless of us having a rescue squad or not, gets checked in a box that with VLCT that they are operating as EMS and fire. And that's just workers' comp. Apparently, you know, that changes year to year, but risk associated with jobs, EMS is a slightly higher risk with number of injuries, probably because of the, you know, rate of response, not necessarily the dangers. But I believe we currently have 3 folks that we're paying that additional $25 on, or the town is. And my understanding in talking with Brandon is we're currently paying $25 for 4 personnel in Ascutney that are working under Dale Gerard's license. So that is already something that's kind of happening, and as folks get licensed with any kind of training, even without this, we're still going to essentially inherit that cost.
Before I go into discussion, I want to get a motion on the floor. And Robert's Rules of Order suggest almost always, well, as a general rule, that motion is always in the affirmative. So a motion on the floor would be to accept or to authorize, Brandon.
I would say accept because authorization, I would say accept.
Accept the non-transport license proposal from the West Weathersfield Fire Department. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
I second it.
Second. We have a motion and a second, and now we can enter into discussion. Ray had his hand up. So
I just had a comment.
Okay.
I've served in the fire department in different capacities, and one thing that's always been apparent to me, and I always worried about, especially when I was chief for a while, we didn't have a set standard for level of service or level of training for people going to ambulance calls. So if we showed up at Kelly's house and you see the green truck pull in and 2 people jump out of that vehicle, you expect them to fix your problem. And sometimes they couldn't. They were there waiting for the ambulance with you. This will set a standard, this will set trainings, this will cover all your insurance needs, and it definitely is a positive thing. It does take off. Instead of Josh getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning and going to an ambulance call, that we set people that are really motivated that want to be in that position. You know, get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and go to ambulance calls, which is good. So.
And they can alternate, so that Josh doesn't have to do it 6 days a week.
Right. It just, to me, it just seems, it answers a lot of loose ends, ties up a lot of loose ends.
My question is really, and I know it's not a budget thing this year because it's already covered. You already addressed that as far as the budget goes. I just want to make sure that we're heading in the right direction with the budget in the next fiscal year. This, with what Ray just said and what I've heard, this amount of money is, it's not an issue. Not for me. Anybody else? Wendy?
Oh, I just think it's wonderful that it would actually set a precedence for care and that it would open in the doors for people that, that are in the medical field that would like to volunteer. And I also love the fact that it's actually going to set a precedence on the insurance, that there's a coverage. Yeah. So.
Paul?
I'm all for it.
Okay. Any further
Thanks, Paul.
discussion?
Nothing.
Any further discussion? Okay, we have a motion on the floor to accept the proposal of the non-transport license for the West Weathersfield Fire Department with the added cost, the insurance, everything. Great job, gentlemen. We do appreciate you very much here in Weathersfield. You all do a great job. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries. It's unanimous. Thank you again.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Congratulations.
Thanks again for the help today, Chief. Appreciate it.
We'll keep you guys abreast of, or Brandon will keep you guys abreast of updates as we move forward. I think that would be pertinent as this is somewhat new in town, that the board be educated as to where we stand. So, I think if he feels we should come back to a meeting, we would do so, but at this point, I think otherwise we'll let him maintain the updates with the board.
Maybe something to consider would be putting out some kind of a release that states exactly what the description is and what this is, so that we understand it.
Part of the application process with the state of Vermont is actually to do a news, essentially take out a news ad. To do so, it has to be posted for, I don't remember exactly how long, we have to go through those steps, but that is one of the items that needs to be done.
And Brendan, I don't know if there's any language that needs to be tied to this into the contract, if there is, worked out with them.
Yeah.
It does. The contract does currently specify how we're supposed to respond to medical calls, so that is essentially why we needed authorization to move forward. So we can address that as needed if that's essentially what that is.
You guys can work that out with Brendan, and then when you get to something that you're willing to agree on, bring it forward.
Yeah, I think we haven't spoken about it, but it's going to echo state statute. We will now have state statute to follow, which makes it really easy to put something into an agreement.
That business plan helped a lot too.
We're not
It
making
laid
it
everything right out, so.
It did.
Yep.
Excellent
You
business
guys
plan.
did a great job. Appreciate it, guys.
Thank you guys for your support. We're going to we're gonna take off.
Okay.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Acting town manager discussion. Brandon, you wanna run with this?
Yeah, so I actually had a good conversation with Dave today. And he said that, basically what he was looking for is to empower our department heads. And that's exactly how I feel as well. And I'd like, I don't know if, I don't want to put words into his mouth because he's not here. But we did have a good conversation about that today. So if you look at the longer sheet that I've provided to everybody, the select board, well, as you know, the voters elect select board members, and then the select board as a whole votes to appoint a town manager. And then the town manager oversees the day-to-day operations of the town. And that's 24 VSA 1232 through 1233. The town manager position is non-political and must be filled based upon qualifications of the applicant and without reference to his or her political beliefs. The manager must not be a member of the select board, and the manager is given general supervisory powers over the affairs of the town and is considered the administrative head of all departments of town government. Department heads are considered heads of their respective departments. So for example, the highway superintendent is charged with overseeing the highway department and all of his highway workers. In Weathersfield, the highway superintendent also oversees the transfer station. The police chief oversees policing and police officers. A fire chief oversees fire services. In Weathersfield, there are 2 fire chiefs, each who oversees fire services within their respective boundaries in town. The land use administrator is recommended by the planning commission and appointed by the select board. Although the town manager oversees the land use administrator from a personnel perspective, the land use administrator has powers separate from the town manager, and that's 24 VSA 4448. The town manager has office staff, for example, an accountant that keeps the town books, and a human resource and administration employee that handles payroll, benefits, is the assistant collector of taxes, and provides general human resource matters for the town. The town manager also appoints an emergency management director, and that's under 20 VSA Section 6A. In Weathersfield, the town manager also holds the following positions, including tax collector, road commissioner, health officer, solid waste district representative, transportation advisory committee representative, and water director. In the event the town manager is absent from the town for a period exceeding 2 consecutive weeks, in many towns, he or she shall designate an acting town manager who shall be empowered to fill the financial check and balance within the office. So this doesn't mean that somebody's coming from another town or some other town manager that isn't qualified or entrusted or has gone through the rigorous background check that's required to become a town manager and reference check and so forth, is coming into the town to run the town. That's not what that is. If you look at our invoice processing sheet here, this is just a general thing that we put together to show you what a check and balance looks like. So an invoice is received in office and it's sent to the finance office. The finance office dates and stamps and codes the invoice. So when an invoice comes in, it has to be coded to a specific account, which is inside of the budget. And that stamp that's coded, from there, the invoice is entered into accounts payable. Finance reviews and sends it to the department head. If it doesn't exceed that purchasing policy threshold, the department head is empowered to sign that invoice. So each week, every 2 weeks, Mr. Stapleton, for example, comes in, he sits in the conference room, he goes through all of his invoices, and then he signs off on them. If they exceed his authority by the purchasing policy, then he walks into my office and we have a conversation, and then I sign off on it if I agree.
Do those limits vary for different departments, or is it,
Nope.
that's a set, it's all the way across the board, it's the same thing?
Yep.
What is that limit, $3,000? Or is it higher than that?
I believe it's $2,500, correct?
I think it's broken up to $2,000. After $2,000, I have to have a purchasing order, which is all on me, and then up to $5,000. Once I hit the $5,000 threshold, I have to have Brandon and I, or it used to be the finance director and I,
Yep.
could sign off on it. Anything over $10,000 would have to go to,
Us.
well, no, $5,000 to $10,000 would have to be signed off by all three of us. Over $10,000 is supposed to go to the bid process, which is also initiated by the town manager.
Thank you, sorry to interrupt.
Yep. So from there, the town manager reviews and signs off. A check is printed if approved, and it's put onto the warrant. So nothing's even paid at this point. It gets put on the warrant, and then the select board approves it. And then once the select board approves it, that's a warrant the board draws on the treasurer. So now the treasurer looks at the warrant approved by the select board, makes sure that it's approved by the necessary people, make sure that it follows the purchasing policy. If it exceeds the limits, then at that point, he wants to make sure that the 3 quotes are in the folder or attached to the invoice. And if everything's in place, then the treasurer signs the check is mailed and sent to the vendor.
And the other check is, receipts have to be with the
Yep.
invoice.
Receipts have to be with the invoice and so forth. So let's say, for example, and by the way, from the town managers I'm talking to, this is very unusual. But let's just say that something urgent came up and Mr. Stapleton, the highway superintendent, is purchasing something that's $6,000. He didn't tell me about it before I went on vacation or before I got sick, if that was the case, or got into a car accident or something happened, and he needed a town manager to sign off on it. Then in that case, the acting town manager appointed, which I'm recommending that it's another town manager because they understand the day-to-day operations of a town already. He would.
And I'll interject right there also, a study that he did, he downloaded the thing from VLCT that shows incompatible offices, which leaves us with very limited staff here in town that are even capable of being the acting town manager because of those separations of powers that we listened to earlier from Steve and the auditors.
So from my perspective, I don't want to violate any internal controls. In addition to that, I'd really like it to be, if anything, a town manager that's already been involved. And in this case, Mr. Mobus and I, we attend town manager luncheons. Tomorrow, he's actually invited me to go to the Chamber of Commerce because the governor's coming, and it's a good opportunity to meet him and be involved in that. So Springfield's right next door. We pay Mr. Mobus mileage to get here. He doesn't mind, and he signs off on an invoice and under the worst case scenario. In addition to that, I sign off on payroll. I don't think I would give that up. Like if I go on vacation, it would be really tough for me to, not because anything, it's just, that's a good check and balance, and I see payroll every week, whereas Mr. Mobus might not, so unless I'm really sick. But being on vacation, it takes me 30 minutes to an hour to review everything, and then I can just docu-sign it and send it back.
The age of technology.
So, and that's what I did while I was in Columbia, and I feel it worked out very well. Maybe I did a little bit more work than I thought I would, but now I know what to expect next time I leave. And setting aside an hour here or an hour there, that's just normal stuff when you have a job.
If you wanted to not do that, if you were out, you'd also have that option.
Yeah, have the option. Hey Jeff, do you mind running over there? I've reviewed payroll. DocuSign isn't working. Can you just go sign the paper?
Exactly.
Mostly before I go on vacation, things are anticipated and things are paused. Now, of course, you can't predict, maybe the plane crashes and I die. You think about these worst case scenarios, or you get into a car accident, or something just really bad happens. Most towns go, it's in their actual policy that they go weeks, up to 2 weeks before an acting town manager is appointed.
For for this board's information, the day after you appointed me as chair, I went and I met with him with the question, who runs everything? What, I don't know. I don't spend any time in the office. Who do I go to? You know, who takes care of what? So that's been made clear to me. And in the case of an accident, let's not hope for any of that stuff, Brandon.
But, I mean, we have to have these
I would call an emergency meeting
discussions.
with this board and we would figure out what we're gonna do moving forward. Whether we need to name an interim town manager let things, depends on what the severities are, you know, what's necessary. But this board is what I would turn to figure out what we're gonna do. And as this chart here says, you know, Olivia, Suzanne, Steve,
Yep.
Floanne, you know, Ray,
Your department heads.
Mr. Daniels, the chief of police, the department heads know what to do. They know how to run things. And I know who's in charge, they know who's, everybody knows. Everything would continue to function. So, great job on this, Brendan. Anything else?
Well, I got the idea from Paul because he's in the process of creating one of these and he can do a much better job than me with design, but I just wanted to put something together for tonight. And the reason why I wanted to give you this is really in that worst case scenario, something bad happens. Maybe I'm not, you know, Paul and I were talking about this in the beginning of the meeting. Maybe I don't appoint the animal control officer, but I do oversee the animal control officer on the day-to-day. So this is generally, you know, information flows to me and flows back to these department heads. And then information flows from these department heads to their department. So there's a constant shift of information management. Things aren't going to be perfect. If something bad happens, in any case, and something bad happens, you're going to have to find an interim town manager, which is different than an acting town manager.
That's correct.
And that interim town manager serves as town manager based on the same state statute until a new town manager is appointed, and the select board would have to appoint a town manager search committee. The search committee makes recommendations to the select board, and then you go through that background check process, and so forth. So, but you have this, so if something happens, you know who all your contacts are. I'll put some good contacts aside in a Word document, so if the board needs to pass along information, you have everything right there. My files electronically are well organized, in my opinion. And the office staff does a very good job at organizing files. So they have all the information that you'd need to run the town in the case something happened.
I'm confident. Wendy?
I think the thing I was just going to say also is just that I do like the idea of, one, thank you for this, but two, if we're going to have somebody that's going to step into that position, I want somebody that is educated and in the same line that he is, and that is, so I really appreciate that that's the direction.
Ray?
I just know in past, in some cases in emergencies, they go through the legal cities and towns, and they have town managers with experience that come in and temporarily help out with that.
Yep, that's a really good
I would hope
idea.
if something like that happened and I called an emergency meeting, that the department heads would be here. Because that would be an important meeting for us to all be putting our heads
Instead
together.
of you guys trying to figure out who we go through, you go through the legal cities and towns, and they will.
Yes, absolutely. Paul?
I'm good.
Any-
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Kelly? Everybody's good? Do I hear a motion on the floor to appoint Jeff Mobus acting town manager?
I'll make that motion.
I'll
Do I hear a
second.
second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to appoint Jeff Mobus acting town manager. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous? Any opposed? It is unanimous.
So if you say no, I go to Jeff.
No, no.
I think it's really important to note that the acting town manager would be activated and deactivated.
One of the other things you stumbled on, I think there was a town that did this, and it was used once in like 9 or 10 years.
Yeah, the town of Windsor, right next door. That's what Tom said, and many towns don't even have one. I like the idea of having one. especially having somebody that I trust that's right next door, that's the town manager in our neighboring town, that could very easily be here and provide support. It puts the town in really good hands.
Chair,
Yes, sir.
quick question.
Yes.
You talked about, that person does have to get activated or not. Obviously, if you go on vacation, you can activate that person.
Yes.
In case that you're incapacitated for some, does that automatically activate that person?
I think in that case, the select board, if I was really sick, then I could just simply shoot him a text and say, but if I'm like in a car accident and like in a coma, then maybe the chair should call Jeff.
Yeah, we've already,
I just wanted, when you brought that up, I was like, oh, I just want to make sure we don't get confused on that.
Yeah.
If it's really long-term, you might consider an interim.
Yeah, so, good.
coming.
If it looked like it was gonna be long-term, we'd be in an emergency meeting
Yep.
pretty quickly.
Yep. Thank you.
That would be my thought, anyway. All right, so next we have a second-class liquor license, I believe. So I have to convene the Board of Liquor, what is it? Liquor what?
Sounds good.
I'm not sure.
Liquor Authority or something like that? What's it called, Lee?
The Board of Liquor Commissioners.
Commissioners, that's it.
Board of Liquor
Commissioners.
Commissioners.
Again, we're commissioners. Good job, Brent. Let me see, I gotta get through something here.
Was this, may I ask a question quick?
Yes, sir.
What was this missed last time, or?
I believe it hadn't been turned in yet.
Yeah, Flow In hadn't, or it wasn't Flow In, but they didn't provide it to Flow In time, and we just wanted to get the other ones done
no
because it wasn't the other establishment's fault that.
Nope.
Yep.
No problem. Thank you.
I'm trying to get to it so I have the name. There's all this stuff.
It's actually right on the agenda if you needed it.
Is there any number or license number or anything like that that goes with it, though? That I need to, that's next. So I didn't see,
I don't see it in the packet. Is it in the packet?
I don't see it in here.
Not in the
Brandon.
packet.
Okay. So motion to approve the second-class liquor license for J.W. Sandry doing business as Sunoco Gas Station. Do I hear that motion?
I'll make it. Yep.
Do I hear a second?
No second.
Paul and Kelly, have a motion and a second to approve second-class liquor license for J.W. Sandry, DBA Sunoco Gas Station. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous. Lottery lane update. Is this Brandon or Ray? Brandon?
I'll run through it. It's just a brief update. So again, the town received a $175,000 construction grant, a $26,000 engineering grant to fix a culvert on Lottery Lane. The project includes removal and replacement of the existing structure with associated channel improvements and bank stabilization. An RFP was advertised on March 2nd. A pre-bid conference and site visit took place on March 15th at 9:30 a.m. And those minutes and folks that attended that meeting is included as attachment A. Bids are due on March 31st at 2:30 p.m. The engineer will evaluate the bids and we will meet together to formulate a recommendation. This will be presented to the select board for discussion and if agreed upon for approval on April 4th. Any questions? Or do you have anything else?
I thought we had a really good turnout at the job site.
Good. And you like the plan? I've read the plan. You like the plan?
I like this, and I also like having an engineer design something instead of trying to do a design and build, because the last time everybody was bidding on something different, and we had to try to figure out what it was they were building. That does not work. So going forward, I would strongly recommend having things engineered and put together the engineer with the bid process and everything. It's a lot smoother.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Anybody, any questions? Kelly? Anybody? Okay, so I guess we'll see this again on April 4th. Bid openings are when, Brendan, I'm sorry?
March 31st. And that's at 2:30 PM, I believe.
Okay.
I just said it, so.
I've never been in on those. Am I not supposed to, or that's?
They're open to the public.
Yeah, they're open to the public. Generally, it's people who bid on the project and the department head, town manager, engineer, and stuff like that.
You guys do it, right?
Yeah, Floanne attends it because she notarizes it. You're welcome to attend.
There's really no questions during the bid process. You open up the envelope, he reads off what it is.
Yep. Town manager goals?
Yeah, I have a handful of goals, so I'll address those in a future meeting, in a memorandum.
Okay.
But, I mean, yeah, I'll address it there. I don't want to go.
Select board goals. Has anybody thought about this? If not, we'll do the same thing. We'll just move forward with it and let people think about what they want to bring to the table as some things to focus on this year. What do you think?
Yep, that's fine.
That sound good? Okay, so Brandon, we'll keep hey, put that thing away.
Sorry, no, it's I was trying to prevent these things from going off.
If I may, I have one thing that, I think a lot of us know that maybe have been here or whatever, but, along with the goals, I'd almost like to highlight some of the things that the boards maybe have accomplished over the last 5 years too. I mean, just to give us a good push going forward with what our new goals are gonna be, things we've already done, so.
Yeah.
Like the solid waste contract, things of that nature, I mean, we've done some really good work between the last few boards, at least that I've been paying attention and on the board, I think, so. I'd just like to highlight a couple of those too along with that, if that's acceptable.
Okay.
I mean,
I'm fine with it. Sounds more like town report, town meeting stuff, but.
No, I
okay.
meant, we're gonna put a thing together to say we wanna do these top 10 things, maybe we'll have a couple of items to say these are what things we've accomplished, so like the, we have the solid waste, agreement, but we're still looking at the things that need to get done there, so. Then that would transfer into, these are the new goals now, we've accomplished these, and these are what we're gonna go to next,
Okay.
is my thought process.
I'm good with that.
I'm not all about rehashing, but I think Brandon knows what I meant.
Brief,
Yeah.
yeah.
You can see where you gotta go, cause you know where you've been.
So Brandon, we'll tie these two things together, the town manager's goals and select board goals.
Yep.
So, we'll look at the next agenda or the one after that. We'll see what how busy the next one is first.
Yeah. And I think, once those building assessments are done, Mike, I think we're gonna have to spend some time, not only the contractor, but the contractor and I and you and the department head developing the prioritization plan and the actual document that we'll push out to the board, which might not be until the second meeting in April or maybe even the first meeting in May.
For anybody that hasn't been in Brendan's office recently, there's a board on the wall behind the door, and he's got a list of 5 things that deal with this ARPA stuff. And he's working us through that, so.
One last thing.
Sure.
Just let the rest of the board know, we had, this goes along to the future agenda items. We had, the reassignment of positions for the planning commission. I got appointed as chair. I just wanted to also bring to the board, let them know for future agenda items that we have a pretty, good, rewrite of things that we've been doing for the last handful of years, that we've had some transition people in the land use and so on. So I think we've got a real good handle of what the bylaws are, what has been pushed through, what where we're at. So we're gonna kind of rebring those to the board as a we'll have to go through the hearing process and so on, but then we'll have a real good basis. DeForest, I just want to shout out to DeForest for that, because she's really spent a lot of time digging through past meeting minutes and trying to put a lot of that together. So, but you're going to see some stuff coming up through from the planning commission, hopefully, as soon as legally you can get, things warned and processes through, so.
Fund balance. For future agenda item. We've got.
I'll be ready on April 4th for that.
Yeah, don't worry, you have to, I mean, they said that the numbers aren't gonna change, but we probably really shouldn't do much of anything with that until we finalize the audit.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree too.
And I do, you know, I talked to the accountant, and maybe this should be under, I'll address this under any other business.
Yeah, we know it's gonna be coming.
Yeah.
You know, we need to be thinking about, I guess, what's gonna happen there. Appointments. What do we have left? Budget Committee, Joseph Buble. Green Up Coordinator, Steve Aikenhead. Transportation Advisory Committee, Brandon Golnick. Tree Warden, Ryan Gumbart. Zoning Board of Adjustment, John Broker Campbell, and Willis Wood as an alternate. Do I hear a motion to appoint?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Motion to appoint the aforementioned names to their respective boards and committees. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. It is unanimous. Approve the warrants.
I make a motion that we approve the warrant for March 21st, 2022, for general fund payroll in the amount of $16,992.10. Operating expenses $32,563.82. Highway fund payroll is $8,626. Operating expenses $52,125.10. Solid Waste Management Fund payroll is $1,710.54. Operating expenses $13,131.59. Library payroll is $1,991.08 and 0 operating expense. Food shelf freezer will be $9,290.36 for grand totals of $29,319.72 for payroll, and operating expense $107,110.87.
Any discussion?
Yes. On the second pay week, under the Mr. Stapleton's department, my name is underneath there and it shouldn't be. We don't want to take away his money.
Is it really?
He's shifty like that.
I thought you were out in one of the trucks helping. That's what I thought.
I'd be the one stuck.
That's actually really funny. What page is that again?
It's the last, it's the second pay week of, their department, 3/17, the week of 3/17, date check.
Thanks for all your help, Kelly.
Glad I could help.
Hey, we'll stick you in a truck. We need the help.
Yeah, it's on page. I think it's on page 214.
Okay, I do see it.
Yeah,
214 of the packet?
pretty sure. Yeah.
I'm not sure why she put you there, but
I mean, it looks good.
Pull the budget somewhere else.
yeah.
I get it, yeah.
But the payment is supposed to be made.
I did get the check.
Okay, good. It's just for different duties and responsibilities. Okay.
I don't think that legally changes anything here. We're still.
Yeah, I don't know why she wasn't. It
Okay.
may have been an alphabetical thing. I think,
Maybe for that date.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a clerical fix. Any further discussion on the warrants?
Oh, that was it.
Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 I'm sorry, who seconded that, the warrants?
Did you?
No, I don't think anybody did.
Nobody did.
Okay. I know.
I'll second
I made the
it.
motion.
Let's
so-
back up. Paul, you did the motion?
Yeah, I will second it.
We have a second. And all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Keep keeps us in order. Any other business that can legally be conducted while we're here? Right? Where's Brandon?
I did, but it'll wait for another town manager report. I'm not gonna hold things up here. It's not that important.
Junk.
If it's important, go ahead, spill your guts.
It's not.
Really?
So,
Going on vacation?
October.
We're on the corner.
Yeah.
Why wait?
Stay off the back road. You wanna make it to October?
I'll probably take a week here. It's coming up sometime, but I'll let you guys know.
I have a question, this is a citizen.
Okay.
Does the board ever get reports or talk with any of the committees to find out what they've done for the year or what they're working on? Like cemetery committees or park committees, or do you know the list of all the committees this town has?
Go ahead, Paul.
Can I repeat what you said?
What's that?
On the report?
Is that it?
If I may, we haven't done that in the few years that I've been here as well as we wanted to, and I think a lot of us have wanted to do that, and it goes by the wayside sometimes, so.
Maybe make a
we'd-
schedule and just
yeah.
have like April is this month and May is that month.
Who would, what, is there one you're interested in hearing?
I know you have the Weathersfield committee, you have an 1879 house committee, you have, maybe they could just send you a little something and give you a blurb with an update. So the townspeople could actually know, or maybe put it on the website, or
Or we can invite anyone, we can have
it doesn't have to be the board.
one of these.
Like, what are you doing? What do you plan on doing? The people would like to know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like the 1879 house, they've done a lot of work there. It'd be kind of cool to have a little blurb saying you've done this, this, and this. So the
Yeah,
townspeople know.
well, almost like the business plan that I asked for before. This is the plan. Where are you?
Right,
You know,
right.
what step are you on? I get that. And then there are other situations like in here with Martin Memorial Hall trustees. In situations like that, they're working with Brandon pretty closely.
I
So
think they gave you updates, that was great, but
Yeah.
you have a lot of these committees that you don't ever get. As a taxpayer or citizen, I don't ever get it, or find a place to find an update. I don't know who's on the committees, right? Unless it's
I think the committees are all listed on the town
Okay.
webpage, all those members. No, I'm interested in what you're saying, and how would you like to see that presented? Would you like us to have, like, the chair or vice chair of that board come in and give a presentation, or give a written assessment?
It could be online, it could just be a blurb for each committee on what they're working on and what they're doing on the website.
I know where I was before, they would have the committees come before the select board and give presentations, once a year or once a quarter.
Once a
'cause
project?
This way the select board knows what's going on, and sometimes collaboration's key, the key to success.
Especially like the Hoisington Field and the 1879 house are it's the same property and everything.
Yeah.
Well, one that we tend to see a lot of or hear a lot from is the Conservation Commission, being over at the Planning Commission.
Yep.
Connecticut
Because they
River,
do stuff for us.
agency group
And I
and
didn't
stuff.
for meeting in the mall.
No, you're fine. No, it's a good point.
We have talked about it.
And you could have a schedule, and just say, July is this person, and August is that person. And
That might be a good way to do it, yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, break it up.
I know you have a lot of budget stuff in the fall or whenever that is, so just avoid that.
Well, like Hoisington Field, which is a recreation thing, might be better to have them later in the year. Report on what kind of activities and events or whatever you had happening over there. So, just an idea. But, let's run with that, Brandon.
Okay, sounds good.
Thanks, Ray.
So I'll contact each chair, and I will ask them to,
Maybe make more work for you, so I'm sorry.
no, it's fine.
Okay.
Communicates
You
with
might
most
get more,
everybody.
you might get more people.
Well, we're gonna blame it all on you anyway.
Yeah. Refer to
Okay.
SAPA minutes of March 21st.
Motion to
Motion
adjourn.
adjourned.
I will second it.
Second from Wendy. All those in favor, signify by saying
Aye.
aye. 8:30.
Good job, Mike. Thank you very much.
8:20.